Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, President of Universal Accounting Center, and this is a show dedicated to helping you as entrepreneurs start and build successful bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here in the show that we actually interview the experts, finding out what it is we can be doing to build the premier firm, offering quality services and retaining our clients, getting you paid what you're worth. It's with this show that we'll address topics ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, tech stacks. Perhaps we'll address things related to staff training, client retention, onboarding your clients, and so much more. It's here that we actually dive into the things that you need to consider to work on your business. Here today, we actually have someone I've been looking forward to speaking with, someone that's going to help us dive into the more business side of things. And it's Chad Jenkins. Chad happens to have a mission where he has a relentless pursuit of the elusive secret sauce that drives businesses to soaring heights for growth and prosperity. So Chad, welcome to the show.
Roger, it's excellent to be here with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. This is going to be a lot of fun. I love talking business, and so we're going to get into it. I'd like to actually start, just for my listeners, giving a little bit more context. What got you into business in general?
Fear and greed.
I like the two.
When I was about 8 years old, I figured out roughly what my father made. And just as I would say most of us in school, it's mine against yours, right? Young boys. And that it made me question. It's like, well, I wonder exactly what my father makes, since somebody else thinks theirs makes more than mine. And so that sent me on a quest. I'm naturally curious, and I think I might have come up with it in my head. Okay. But either way, I did the reverse math back down to the hour, and I said, well, that's not that bad. And so I added a zero to it. And then I took it back out to the year, which is, of course, pretty straightforward. Just add a zero to the end. But I was very young, and that's scared me, honestly. So fear, there you go. And I grew up on a farm out in South Carolina where I would argue and joke that time moves backwards. And I didn't, even though I very much enjoyed it and I wouldn't change anything in the past, when I was younger, my mind works pretty quickly. And I heard about this place in New York, which surprisingly I never did actually go to until about 3 or 4 years ago. And now I've been there 50 times. But I wanted to be somewhere different than where I was. And so fear and greed hit me at the same time. And I challenged myself thinking that I didn't have anything. How would I ever do that? And that's not true. It changed my whole mindset and the way that I look at things at that time, in that moment. And I began to look at things not as they're labeled, but how I can leverage them to create and combine with something else and create something new. And I've been doing that since I was 8 years old, training my brain for a very long time. But that's what got me into business.
Well, I don't know what kind of entrepreneur mindset the 8-year-old had, but clearly today you work with business owners and you help them really work on their business. And I know one of the things that you do is you focus on exponential growth. What does that mean?
Yes. So most in any industry, and of course, we're speaking specifically to an audience in accounting, bookkeeping services, and I would say financial services, depending on how you define it. There's a traditional way to grow. You go to the industry show or to your annual event, and someone there is talking about best practices in your industry or in your vertical. And because I started at such an early age, and I had no formal training or formal education, it was all value creation for me through what I now know is leveraging the art of collaboration. So I mentioned just earlier, even at 8 years old, I began to look at things and how I could combine them to create new value. So that the very first business type activity that I ever ventured into was riding people's horses through a sale barn as a kid, because I quickly understood me plus your horse makes the people in the stands think that they could ride it, and they will pay more money and buy it. So I would turn that into $20 per horse per night. And I was probably making $200 or $300. So I defied the conventions, and even in that industry. So exponential growth is whenever you can, of course, take what you existingly have and combine it with things that you already have or things other people have, and create exponential growth, not through the normal conventions and the way people grow in your industry. It's a great question, though.
Well, one of the things that I think stands out to me is that there's a mindset issue here. And let me give you some context. Yes. Many of my listeners, in starting their bookkeeping, accounting, or tax business, oftentimes as I'm working with them, I realize that they typically started with the intent of starting the business to give themselves work, which is a job. They're basically
Yes.
remaining as a solopreneur, working with clients, and they're doing very well. I mean, they're happy, they're working, they're doing what they love.
Sure.
But the challenge is moving from that mindset of, I have a job, this is what I do, I, yes, own a company, but really, is it a company if it's just me? And it's getting them to actually switch into that mindset of, how do I now grow what I have here? And what you're talking about is this exponential growth, which is to say, getting beyond themselves and growing the business and leveraging some of those things that complement what they obviously are doing in their services. So here's where I want to go with this. You're big on collaborations. I know that that's something that you really
Yes, sir.
harp on. So how does an accounting professional who's working with bookkeeping, accounting, tax type services need to look at collaborations?
Mm. So a couple different ways. It is a great question. I'll go with the obvious one. And this is actually from one of my tools. So I have what's called a bidirectional collaboration identifier. So we're going to go with one currently, and that's the horizontal line. Every client that you're currently providing bookkeeping services for, when you look at all of them, let's just take the top 5. They have commonality in where they came from before. They're in wildly different industries, is my expectation, unless you're now specialized, and that even makes it easier. But all of the small businesses that you're engaged with, before they ended up at your mailbox, remember this horizontal line? We'll draw like a little conceptual picture for you. This is client lane that is this horizontal line. You have a mailbox. Your house is you, directly in front of you. To your right and also to your left, along the journey of those that you're serving, they came from somewhere. And whenever you deliver the value, you really knock it out of the park on their bookkeeping. Because you've done such a great job, they go to the next mailbox, which is a different product or service and a different business. So it could be, now that they have great bookkeeping, a financial advisor. It could be somebody for tax planning. Before and or after you delivering your product or service, there are logical places, other business services that those clients come from, and also those clients go to when you deliver exceptional value. Those by far are the lowest hanging fruit to consider for collaborations. Let's say that you decide to engage with someone that you've recognized a lot of your best clients come from before they get to your mailbox. That's one collaboration. And in that collaboration, one would ask, how? Well, you've determined that they are receiving value from this other business service. Obviously, they're at your mailbox now, they're a client of yours, and you're delivering value to them. You may consider combining efforts with those that they came from before and calling it something different. This is leveraging the age-old rule, one that I wake up every morning and think about. Make it easier for clients to do business with you. Well, if I combine, let's say that you are one of those business services that I recognize a lot of my great clients are engaged with beforehand. Maybe it is, first and foremost, is there anything that comes to mind when I paint that picture in your mind?
It does. There's two things that come to mind.
Yes.
Yeah, two things that come to mind. One is in the networking space. One of the things that I'm familiar with is BNI, and BNI has what are called power teams. And the whole idea is what you're trying to do is find these collaborations that you're referring to, where businesses have these collaborative type interactions with potential clients. And so in the space of accounting, one of the things that's very common is you can actually meet up with a merchant service type company. And as they're going out and trying to get companies set up with their merchant services, point of sale, and so forth, clearly that's a natural transition into accounting services. Well, who's doing your books? Well, you need to be working with my colleague here, who's the bookkeeper, the accountant, and so forth. And so that's a natural thing. And then for CPAs oftentimes in offering their services don't want to do the write-up work. And so they're oftentimes ones to delegate out the bookkeeping work. So that's a natural evolution. The same thing as it relates to tax. You can have somebody that does tax planning, but they don't do tax preparation. And so all of a sudden, those two can collaborate very well together simply because of what they've chosen to specialize in. So there's just a number of collaborations that I think are very obvious, and those that you're pointing out are clear. But what I would like to add before we move on is that in the accounting space, when I'm speaking of becoming the premier accounting firm, one of the things that I emphasize is that there's three core services that either you need to be providing or you need to have an associate, someone you collaborate with, that can also perform these for your clients. And it's basically three things. It's bookkeeping and accounting, tax planning and preparation, and CFO and advisory services. And whether your firm is choosing to do one or all six of those things, the client still needs them. And so if you're not providing them, the client's going to go somewhere else. And wouldn't it be nice if they're going based on referral and you have a collaborative relationship with one of those other services? And so that's where I'd go with that. How does that sound?
Spot on. There's a couple of things that I've recognized. I've just engaged to create a patent and also a certification mark for the way to collaborate. And I'll give a little bit of insight into what I've seen to be successful and now what I utilize to help entrepreneurs all over the world through my collab community. You have to name it. So I like that BNI, you referenced BNI earlier, and I think you called it power teams. Is that correct?
Yes, power teams.
Okay. I've done a lot of studying and apply a lot of intentionality around naming. And it's not what we would call it, right? We have so many acronyms in any industry. Good Lord, we don't have enough time on this podcast to go through the ones that we could bounce back and forth. And just a little bit of background, I recently sold one of my operating companies that I started some time ago was a bookkeeping, very heavily involved bookkeeping and financial management organization. It was just growing really fast. Kudos to everybody that has one. It was a cash cow. My average ticket was $5,700 a month. So it might not have been the conventional bookkeeping. I have a very good friend that owns franchise books keeping. And yes, the gentleman is Russian. Really good guy, Max Emma.
Yep, I know
His
Max.
Average ticket. Oh, really? No,
I do know Max. Yes, he actually was at our conference just a few weeks ago, or a few months ago.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
I've had him on the show, in fact. So there you go.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, he's been a guest on the podcast.
That's awesome. Max is a great guy, but his of course, average ticket's a little different because he's doing a lot of franchise bookkeeping, like smaller firms. Either way, just a little bit of background. I understand part of the game. So I'll get back to this power team concept, which I love the concept and it makes complete sense. Obviously, it complements a lot of, at least fundamentally, where I start with collaborations. I like to go a little bit deep. When you identify those associates, I think you mentioned, now collaboration partners is what I would classify them. It's paramount to name the collaboration.
Okay.
Because when you do that, you immediately wipe the competition off the field, right? Let's say that you and I are engaged in a collaboration. I do tax planning. You're excellent at bookkeeping. We're going to come together and we're going to name this new service, which is the combination of you do what you do and you're excellent at it. And I take what I do very serious. But now together, we have created this named service that exists above your organization and my organization. A little fashion forward, I'm going to go create a landing page for this new service. And I'm going to give you this white labeled landing page so you can also add it to your website. The reason that you and I named it is so that I can go back to my sales team and I can give them a name that's associated to a series of bullet points. I'm not asking them to remember all the bullet points. But not only am I doing that for my sales team, who of course are my ambassadors, but I'm going to extend that to my clients because we've already extended it to whoever comes to our website, right? This name equals the combination of your secret sauce and my secret sauce. We're making it easier for people to do business with our organizations. We've also, by named it, nobody else offers that particular service. Sure, they can offer the services individually named by the conventional name of whatever it is. But if we're in a bidding situation, somebody has to say, oh, in the organization, they have to understand exactly what we're delivering because it's a combined service. We're going to combine our fees. We probably even are going to be, I would be, a little bit tighter with our pencil, sharper with our pencil, because I don't have to pay for leads that you give me. And whatever my marketing budget is for net new, let's say it's 6%, 3 to 6% for most organizations, I'm at least going to pass that along as a discount to whomever is going to engage because they walked into your office first and then they needed tax planning. What if they walked into my office and now they know because they saw us on the website that we offer this combined service. Well, that means you get a lead that you didn't have to pay for, right? So you and I now become more competitive. And so not only do we name it, now we separate it from everybody. we've got it on our website. So that's working for us. Your marketing dollars are now working for me. Mine are working for you. Our sales teams have something to talk about that individualizes them in the marketplace. And we've made it easier for people to do business with us because we gave something an identity. So it's a little different ballgame than just having some associated relationships, which maybe they take it that far. And I'm just not an engagement with BNI, even though the gentleman lives in the neighborhood that I moved out of a couple months ago.
So are you suggesting that this collaboration be something as formal as a name, or so formal as to be another business entity that the two are creating together?
No, I don't see. I think in my world, in my experience, and goodness, I've got a little bit of that in this conventional sense of creating LLCs. I feel like the state of North Carolina really appreciates all of my franchise fees. I'm trying to get smarter as I get older. We actually doing it in a lot of the conventional sense. We put things in the path of progress as obstacles. So what I'm really saying is name it. And I would argue, and I do use extensively instant IP. So anything that I create within 12 hours, it's on blockchain with a smart contract. I was first. It's kind of the conventional sense of me sending myself a letter that ran through the post office and it's stamped, but I never open it because I went for a patent later.
But what I'm referring to is this collaboration. You spoke of the fees being you said sharpen your pencil and charge them
Yeah,
together. So somebody's got to charge for the
absolutely.
fee. And so is this
Yeah.
one of the two entities, or is it a third combined entity that these
No.
individuals are running the payments through?
Yeah. So that when we name it, you have it in your QuickBooks file and I have it in mine. So when a
Okay, so
client
you're
wants to
not
engage in
suggesting
that
that these
particular
two go into
service,
business together. You're just simply saying in
not at all.
namesake that you're actually just speaking of one another's services. Okay. If you're looking to advance your career in accounting, you need to enroll now in the Job Placement Assistance Program. This course is created for accounting professionals to find a new job, apply for a promotion, or get a better position within a company. It is the turnkey process to actually help you better interview, get the job you deserve, and get paid what you're worth. For more information on how you can take advantage of this offer, go to the episode description. Enroll now in the Job Placement Assistance Program. Do it for free and act now. Well, let me take this to another level, because I know that you actually speak of what's called basically curiosity catalysts. And I was curious what that was all about. I'm not familiar with it enough to actually understand it. So I was hoping you could explain that for our listeners.
Yeah, the curiosity catalyst is, and I can make it a lot easier to understand. Better is infinite. So whatever we're doing now in creating value for those that we serve, there's a lot more meat on the bone, either through the art of collaboration or leveraging curiosity. Our processes, our delivery, our presentation, better is infinite, and we can continue and continue. So what I have recognized, entrepreneur journey, start out, and you mentioned it, but yet they create themselves a job. Then they start making money. Then they may hire a couple folks, and they begin to scale inside of the conventions of that industry. They lose that level of curiosity. I talk a lot about frictions. I was in my most recent book is labeled as friction fuel, but I've always been drawn into industries because I recognized a friction. I've yet to run across an entrepreneur who didn't start by recognizing a friction. Maybe they were working somewhere. You made reference to that earlier. And they knew that they could do it better. All I'm saying with that curiosity catalyst, don't stop. Right? When you take that leap of faith, you start your own bookkeeping service and you began to get clients, and now you've elevated beyond that. Life's pretty tough because you're running on the hamster wheel. You decide to hire someone, that doesn't work out, but you don't give up. You hire another person. Now you've hired two. Be careful not to slide back into the confines of just scaling in your industry when it is always about what I classify as your hero target, which is not my language. It's Dan Sullivan's language with strategic coach, but it's who you want your bookkeeping business or your accounting practice to be a hero to. So the curiosity catalyst is better is infinite. Keep finding out new ways to add value. We've talked about one just previously, the art of collaboration.
Yeah, one of the things that I find that you're addressing is what I refer to as geometric marketing. It's listening to your customers and finding out what other additional services you might be able to offer that they'd be willing to pay for. They already know, like, and trust you. And so they're paying you for
Yes,
something now. What more would they pay for? And if you, at least on an annual basis, kind of assess what it is that you're already doing and how it could be complemented by something else, something that you could bring more value to the relationship, all of a sudden, then that additional service is either something you're able to offer independently or in conjunction with what you're already doing and have them pay more. So either way, it's a win-win for you. The other thing that I'd like to dive into is you wrote a book. It's kind of interesting to me.
sure,
I'm always interested when people write books. One, they've got this concept, this idea, and clearly they're talking about it. They may be speaking about it and so forth. But to take it to
sure.
that level of writing a book is kind of an interesting journey. So it's basically called Just Add a Zero. I'm curious, what's the concept and why did you go to the extent of actually writing the book?
hmm So the concept of just at a zero is a catalyst to make people think differently. If you were to export your P&L, which we're all very familiar with in the industry that we're talking about here, the audience today, add a zero to every number there. The first thing your brain's going to do, and it probably did it while you're listening to me, is tell you all the reasons that cannot become true. You may also consider to leverage the power of one little word, unless. So just add a zero is a catalyst for making folks think much, much bigger. I would argue that our vision or lack of is what holds us all back. Because when you begin to explore and understand that everything is a collaboration, you and I are collaborating on this podcast. We're collaborating with the platform that's producing it, and someone's going to edit it. Everything's a collaboration. So, what's the limiting factor in our ability to grow? Vision. Because the second that you, in my example, export your P&L and add a zero to it, all the reasons that you come up with that couldn't be true, and then adding unless to it, and just sitting and looking at it, you'll be surprised how much your brain tells you exactly what would have to happen for that to become true. Now you have a roadmap. So the reason that I wrote a book is I fundamentally want to shift the way entrepreneurs think about growth. Any of the obstacles that I run into in growing any of the companies that I own, before I did this, I would try to go hire someone. And I don't know anything in theory about digital marketing. I do own a firm that does that. But way back when I did not. So I would go try to hire someone to help me do my digital marketing. I wasn't the best person to do that because I hadn't been doing it for a long time. But there's an entrepreneur somewhere right now on this phone call that would answer the question, what would happen if they just get out of the way? Well, they could do everything for digital marketing because that's their passion. So I want to leverage the art of collaboration to split the outcome with that person who loves to do that. Uh, so just add a zero and the power of unless and many of the other growth strategies that I've created over being in business for so many years. I wanted to package that up and give back basically.
I like what you've shared simply because there's a few things that stand out to me, one of which is limiting beliefs. I think that we do have within
Yes.
ourselves these limiting beliefs because we lack the vision that you spoke of at the beginning. And whether you're a solopreneur or a small company or whatever the size of your business, it really comes down to the leader. The leader is the one that has the vision for it all. If you look at Jeff Bezos and talk about Amazon, I can guarantee you that he saw it more than just an online purchasing platform. He saw it as something a lot larger than just a library where you can buy books. And so that's what
Bingo.
it became. And so initially, what people saw wasn't what he had in mind. And so, as a visionary, you start to remove those limiting beliefs and you grow your business and expand it. And a nice way to illustrate that would obviously be just add a zero to everything and then figure out how do we reverse engineer this and grow to that new number with that additional zero on it? How do we 10x everything? So I think that's really impressive. The other thing that I'd like to be curious about is you wrote another book called Fiction Fuel. So obviously you're realizing that there is friction in growth. There is
Oh,
this
yes.
challenge that everyone faces as they're running their business. But I know that you identified three types of friction. Tell us about those.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, and I'll compliment that very first book, which is now bestseller. In Just at a Zero, I unpack what I have looked backwards and recognized a pattern. Every industry I've ever started an organization in is because I recognized a friction. And that's wonderful for an entrepreneur. But I wanted to expand that thinking to empower the entire organization. And that led me down a path of saying, okay, how these things exist in every business, how's the best way to communicate that? And to your point, I unpacked to 3 different types of friction. So 3 types of friction, every organization that's listening to us today is running on them. Depending on how much you're running on each one is having a big impact on your ability to grow and separate yourself from the competition. So the first type of friction that we're all very aware of, because we're reacting to it on a daily basis, is regular. So if you think about it like fuel inside of your organization, you're running on regular friction fuel, your hair can sometimes feel a little bit on fire. Your pipeline is drying up. The attrition, 2 people left last week. That's more than we had all last year. Something is not right. You are currently running on regular friction in those categories. But then just beyond that, and where I had recognized the entire organization can embrace these, is the mid-grade, or depending on where you live in the country, it could be classified as plus friction, plus fuel if you pull up to a gas station. So I named the mid-grade or the plus friction as the middle. And those are delivered to you on almost a daily basis by one of 3 hero targets. The earlier mention that I shared, hero targets, is who do you want your practice to be a hero to? That methodology is very clear in that we have 3 hero targets to any business: your team, your clients, and your vendors and suppliers. So those plus frictions that you are likely receiving on a daily basis, that sometimes we turn a blind eye to, at least for a little while, until they become regular friction. And those are delivered a lot of times called complaints. And then lastly, if you can have your organization running on premium, just like the gas station, you're moving the needle. You're potentially evolving industries, but you're doing it incrementally, and people think, oh, you're so innovative. Well, really, you're just paying attention and listening. Remember that curiosity catalyst that we talked about earlier. So a premium friction, an example, is there's a word, and the word is very interesting, tribal illuminescence. And tribal illuminescence, the definition of it is when friction changes into light. So for me, tribal luminescence are those frictions that are way out there on the horizon. No one's complaining about them yet. But you've been in this game for a long time. Take it really serious. You're very intentional about creating more value tomorrow than you did yesterday. And now you're starting to recognize something. There's a change or a disturbance in the force. No one else, again, is complaining about it. It's not mid-grade friction. This is premium. And you decide today to begin creating new products and services so that when the rest of the client base, and some of those clients are of your competitors, are complaining, you're the only game in town. You have now named it. As I mentioned earlier, naming is very intentional and purposeful. And you began to capture quite a bit of business because you had the foresight of what friction was out there on the horizon.
So when you're sharing all that, one of the things that stands out to me, and I don't know if this is what you intended, but friction is good. And what I mean by that is it's from friction that you're able to accelerate, you're able to push forward, you're able to actually launch from it. And so when I'm hearing friction, some people might feel that it's, holding you back, it's resisting, it's showing tension. But in my mind, what I'm seeing is that you're pushing off of. And so I'm liking the friction simply because of the fact that it doesn't enable me to grow and push away from. So I'm liking this. Get your copy of Red to Black. It is the book written for accounting professionals to help businesses turn around and go from being in the red to being in the black. This book is written for consultants, business owners, operators, and managers, no matter what your client's product or service, or irrespective of your talent, skill, or expertise. As an accounting professional, you'll be able to use the principles presented in this book to actually become, for your clients, the profit and growth expert. Every chapter is filled with principles and concepts that you can use immediately with your clients to lead them from being in the red to being more profitable in their business, and see you as, in fact, their guide, their coach, with the expertise and wisdom that you can bring from this book. In the book, you have how-to guide explanations, you have models that you can follow, you're shown how to actually calculate and determine the fees for your services, the actual model that you'll use during the implementation of all this, and most importantly, the end-all results with your clients. Get this book now and see what it is you can do to offer this new revenue-producing service as, in fact, the profit and growth expert. For more information on how you can take advantage of this offer, go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. Now, I know that you also speak of hero. There's a lot of talk of becoming a hero, and it's both that of our becoming heroes to our clients, but also enabling them to be their own heroes. What would you have to say about hero targets?
Hero targets are those that identify that I want my business to be a hero to. That's the target reference. Those, and if you just unpacked, why do we like heroes? Well, every time we engage with a hero, they're adding more value than the last time that I engaged with them. It keeps me coming back for more. So it seems very fitting. When I heard this originally from Dan Sullivan, I said, that's a very interesting way to talk about it. People say, oh, your target client. I'm like, that's good, but that's only one hero that I want my business to affect. I want my business to be a hero to my team, my vendors and suppliers, and of course, my clients, and to my community. So what are we doing today to recognize the frictions that are applicable to all of those categories and taking consideration and building products and services that begin to remove those frictions? I have an example if that would be helpful.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So many years ago, I think I exited this industry and organization back in 2009, 2010. I came from Tractor Supply. I assume most people know what those are in the U.S. these days. So I'd built a Tractor Supply when I was in very early 20s before it was even a thing in North Carolina, South Carolina, both. And I began to grow exponentially because I did things differently. And this guy came along one day and wanted to sell me Nextel telephones. If you recall, those are the two-way radio telephones from way back when.
Very familiar with them. I had one.
So not only did I really, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I still have nightmares. But so now my phone stays on silent, turned over 100% of the time. It's okay if I don't hear another beep beep. I grew very rapidly. Not only did I buy those phones for that particular business, I asked the guys like, hey, I'm pretty sure this can help a lot of businesses. How do you get signed up to sell these? And so a couple of weeks later, Nextel executives came into my 20,000 square foot Tractor Supply looking building with about 100 horse trailers around it. And they looked at me like I had three heads. And they said, you want to do what? I remember because it was a very nice building. I just built it. It's called America's Country Store back then. So it's open rafters, looked like a barn, but it was a very high rent barn. And they thought I was an absolute joke. So they made me start selling all these phones through somebody way outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. 3 months later, they came back and said, we don't know what you're doing, but we have to make you a dealer. Because it's same old rule, make it easy for people to do business with you. So what I did in that particular business, 2 key items. I recognized that the people that were already starting to use these devices were in construction. Well, where do construction guys congregate? Production, home building neighborhoods. All of them are there. Every trade that goes into making a home, from grading, land clearing, the fencing, the roofing, the siding, the irrigation, I could continue on, I shall not, but you get the gist. So I went to them. And then later on, that took over the entire city and eventually some of the Southeast. And then later on, I recognized complaints. My bill's always messed up. Of course, these people were adding phones pretty aggressively. I got that. Another fact was they continued to change rate plans every month to get people to buy phones. I got that. It's like, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. My people have to know these rate plans. They change every 30 days. Pretty good with numbers. All these people trust me, know you, like you, trust you. I appreciate that reference earlier. For people to do business with you, that's a huge asset. So, and of course, I was aware of that at that time. So I said, you know what? I'll start offering a service that I'll look at your bill. Who better to do it? I understand these rate plans. My people do as well. I'll look at your bill, and every time that the carrier changes plans and you change your usage habits, I'll play matchmaker. That saved millions upon millions of dollars for people with large wireless accounts, including some national home builders that had thousands upon thousands of phones on their account. $5 per phone, per month was a $20 million annual recurring business. Listening to my hero target, paying attention to those frictions, and just connecting the dots to what we call at the very earlier of our conversation. I look at things as what they can be used for, not exactly what people label them as, and then combine them to create more value. It's the same thing I've been doing since 8. So that particular couple examples is exactly that, leveraging friction.
I love it. One of the things that I appreciate here is the fact that in our conversation, you've really touched on a few things that as business owners, we need to be considering as we're running our company. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of wrap this up with a few things that I think everyone needs to be aware of. One of which is in the episode description, Chad has been actually very kind to actually include now a link for you to go get a copy of his book, Just Add Zero. And for that, I would encourage you to go to the episode description to get that information so you can go there and get a copy of this and learn essentially what it is to have this mindset change so that you can, in fact, grow your business, become that visionary that we were talking about a minute ago. And as a summary, or not as a summary, but in addition to that, I will also want to mention that in the episode description, you'll find information regarding a book called In the Black. It's 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This was a book written for business owners to help them identify what are the 9 things that need to be done in business to ensure that profit is intentional and deliberate. So go there, get the book In the Black. And then lastly, one that is titled Your Strategic Accountant. It's here that we talk about those 3 core services that I mentioned earlier. What is it that the business owner is needing from and should expect from the accounting profession? You. And as your strategic accountant, you're able to actually go ahead and read what it is you can be doing to build what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area. Now, that being said, as a summary, there are a few highlights that I'd like to bring out from our conversation. First of all, I appreciated the fact that Chad was able to point out that very early on, he was already in that entrepreneurial mindset. But more importantly, as a business coach working with businesses and so forth, he's really come to realize that there are a lot of things going on in business that we need to be aware of, one of which is vision. I think it's very important that as a company, we need to have some idea of where we're taking this and not just see it as a day-to-day type thing. That's the whole concept of working on the business. And so this concept of just add zero, I think, is one way to illustrate how are you going to grow the business? What are you going to do to change what it is you're currently doing today to take it to a whole new level? And then with that, we talked about collaborations. I'm very much a proponent of collaborations. I've found many an opportunity in growing the business just by finding associations with whom I could actually now kind of piggyback off of what they're doing or complement what they're doing and vice versa. And when we're tag teaming like that, they're winning, we're winning, everyone's happy, and it's basically a healthy relationship. So finding those opportunities is just being this proactive business person. And in my world, it's that geometric growth that we're looking for. It's basically finding out from the customers what more would they be willing to pay for if we provided it? What additional value can I bring to the relationship, and what more would they be willing to pay for? That being said, I also like this whole idea of his second book, which is Fiction Fuel, the idea that there are 3 types of things that we need to be considering as we're running our business. And I would simply say friction is our friend. It's from that we're able to now get the catalyst we're needing to grow our business. So lots of really important things that I'm hearing in our conversation today. So Chad, what would you like to end with as a final thought?
Friction is the way, and collaboration is the way through it. Try to dispel. I have not met an entrepreneur on the planet that can. So if we embrace those frictions, it's unlimited innovation. If we're listening, our clients will absolutely tell us what they're looking for. And collaboration is the way through it. You don't have to go out and hire a bunch of W-2s. If you're a small solopreneur or smaller business, a lot of times the obstacle is the bank account. You can't go hire 10 people at one time. Guess what, though? There's another entrepreneur that would love to have your vision to create value for your hero target that they do not have, but they do have the resources. So leveraging collaboration to exponentially grow. If you don't take anything else from this, pay attention to the frictions and leverage collaboration every day, and you will win much, much faster than the guy who might even be running a better business than you, but he's going to grow the old conventional way. You'll so much outpace him, and you're delivering so much more value to the hero target faster.
I like it. It's a winning mindset. I like that. So in addition to that, let me point out that in the episode description, I'm also going to include what's called the turnkey business plan for accounting professionals. I think it'll kind of tag very well to this whole conversation as to building a business and thriving with it. So go there as well into the episode description and get your copy of the turnkey business plan for accounting professionals. This is a free course to help you understand what it is you should be doing as you work on your business. And it'll hopefully open up some of these things that we've been talking today about, such as that growth and, more importantly, that vision. So check out that. Get a copy, go through the course. It is for free. So that being said, let me just wrap up the episode today. Clearly, I want to invite you as listeners, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, to do so. Love to have you as a subscribed listener so that you can get the notifications each and every week when we actually release an episode, so that you can work on your business, finding the time from the insights, the experts, as to what it is that you should be doing to grow your business and, in fact, have the premier accounting firm in your area. In addition to that, I also want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. I hope you've gotten your ticket already, and I hope to see you there. Why? Because this is an event you do not want to miss. It's there on the stage that we have the experts, those individuals that actually have insights that we need to be considering as we run our business. It's there you get to meet your peers, those individuals like you who are working throughout the country, around the world as accounting professionals, and what it is that they're doing that's working, learning from one another, and more importantly, collaborating, just like we discussed today, finding those opportunities to work together and seamlessly assist the clients that we're actually serving. In addition, you also get to meet the team here at Universal Accounting Center, those individuals that are committed to help you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. So join us, register now, and get your ticket to join us for GrowCon. Also, with this, I do want to invite you to go to universalaccounting.com. There in the navigation, you'll find additional free resources. As well, in the navigation, you'll find the podcast. And the podcast happens to have highlight reels that I would encourage you to check out. Regardless of your situation in business, we've put together a number of playlists that you can binge listen to and find out what it is you should be doing in your business as it relates to marketing, selling, staffing. Maybe it's onboarding clients, client retention, perhaps it's mental health. Go there and listen to those various episodes that we've had so that you can now work on the things that matter most to you. That being said, I want to thank you for being here with me today. If you have any questions regarding this concept or any other topics that we've discussed, give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. Always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care, be safe, and have a wonderful day out there.